Good afternoon. This is my March 31st video update. Today I'll talk about updates from Albany and Washington, and I'll answer a member question or two, and give you some updates on what we're doing here at MACNA. Today at the governor's briefing, he gave an update on the COVID-19 crisis. As of the time of his press conference, there have been 75,795 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Over 43,000 of them are in New York City. As of the time of the press conference, 1,550 deaths have been recorded in New York State. The governor announced that his brother, Chris Cuomo, has tested positive for COVID-19. He cautioned people to be safe. The state's creating a centralized coordinating team led by the New York State Department of Health to organize upstate and downstate staffing needs and work on the necessary patient transfers between hospitals. It also will include the federal resources that are being provided. Based on numerous models, the state's expecting the apex of the COVID crisis to occur between 7 and 21 days. And all hospitals were asked to make an accounting of all the supplies they have, so we'll know across the state what the stockpile is available. Over 17,000 ventilators have been ordered from China. As of now, only 2,500 have been secured. The governor continues to look to fulfill a large amount of ventilator needs should they be needed in the state of New York. I'll tell you also some of our members and other manufacturers out of the state are trying diligently to see that they could be of assistance in actually manufacturing ventilators. That's a difficult task, requiring a wide variety of FDA-like approvals, but I know members are working on it. The state unemployment system is overwhelmed by the amount of calls. On a typical week, they would get 50,000 calls at New York State Department of Labor. Yesterday alone, they received 1.2 million calls. So he apologized. They're working as fast as they can to bring the system up to speed to handle the volume of need. He briefly talked about the budget, and I say briefly because he had no specific reports. There is still a desire to have an on-time budget, which would be tomorrow, should they pass all the required bills. They have started en route to doing that by the introduction of bills. One of the bills that's being introduced for passage is a rollback, actually, of the employee voting opportunities that were extended in last year's budget. They're being rolled back to 2 hours, and will make it dependent upon whether or not they have time before or after work to vote. I think many of our members will be satisfied with this mandated change because there are a lot of concerns about the previous bill in last year's budget. If you want more information, you can get that from us in our website. You should also know that if you happen to have a lobbyist or do lobbying on your own, that the JCOB has extended their deadline for lobby filings. There are updates from New York City, and you'll see, in fact, an extended list of updates on our website in our resource section for the executive orders and other guidance and requirements from New York State. There's quite an extensive list. Those links are continuously updated, so you can do that, and that would allow you to keep up to date. You should also be looking at New York State Department of Financial Services. There's a series of updates both in the memo that's on our resources page as well as in the links. You should know there's been no new additional guidance or updates to the essential businesses outlined by Empire State Development. You should continue to refresh that link, but as of now, we don't have any updates. There are also other links in the memo from OSTRUF. We're real grateful for Rebecca Marino, who is our lobbyist who works with OSTRUF and the entire OSTRUF team for all of their rapid updates because things change quickly in Albany. You will also find on our resource page an updated letter from Congressman Katko, where he outlines what's in the CARES Act, which is a really extensive $2 trillion package related to this crisis. There is in the first part of this letter, you'll notice there's access to capital, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, which provides loans of an interest rate to 4% with a maximum loan amount limited to $10 million or 2.5 times your average payroll based on the previous year's payroll. and they can be used to cover payroll costs, including salaries, commissions, and so forth, payments of interest on mortgage obligations, rent, and some other debt that you may have incurred before February 15th, 2020. It does lay out the qualifying businesses which could apply for it. There's also provisions about loan forgiveness. Economic injury disaster loan program should be something also you and your attorney and your accountants look at. There are information in this letter on the IRS tax filing and tax relief elements of the bill, and qualified leave guidelines related to the federal requirements. There are some information there on emergency family and medical leave as well. The workplace guidance for business and employers is listed here, and there also are provisions around bankruptcy. So I ask you to take a look at those as you consider what your options might be under this federal legislation. I want to note also that it's really important if you're planning on doing a layoff or furlough, you should be looking at the WARN Act, which is a New York State requirement that you notify the state of New York if you're planning on closure or layoffs. And you should know that that act has not been suspended during this crisis. In fact, it was written to provide for circumstances that would be sudden and unexpected, but you do have to notify New York State as soon as you've made the decision you plan on announcing it. And then they'll actually make a determination whether or not it falls into the emergency requirements that are related to an unpredictable, sudden, and unexpected circumstances. So you should realize you're still held accountable for the WARN Act. I want to return briefly to some of the guidance and insight we're getting on the CARES Act at the federal level. You should make sure that you have your attorney and any other legal or financial advisors, such as your accountant, take a deep look at this legislation. This legislation is very long, and it's well over 1,000 pages. And one of the things that we've been notified is that this particular act has certain stringent restrictions affecting labor relations. So you should look strongly at these if you're considering using the legislation for your specific needs. For example, one of the things we've been notified of is that eligible businesses would have to remain neutral in any union organizing effort for the term of the loan. So that would be something you have to take into consideration. Also, you should know that if you have a union contract and you are obligated to maintain it during the 2 years of the loan, and that you're not allowed to outsource or offshore jobs during the length of the loan. So this could apply to your subcontract work and may limit some of your other rights. I think it's really important that you take a look at these particular union-related circumstances. As you know, MACNY serves both unionized and non-unionized employers, and we're just informing you of the details of the act. You should also be aware of that there are certain things you'll have to certify as conditions to taking out certain loans and or applying for the grant provisions, such as you must certify that you will not repurchase your own stock. Should your company issue stock, that is, the company can't purchase stock, and that there are certain dividends that are prohibited, and there are certain compensation requirements related to increasing compensation for those who make over a certain amount, both at the officer level and the employee level. So you should look at all the provisions of this in order that you're fully covered and that you understand what you're taking out when you get a loan or a grant related to the CARES Act. If you have more questions about this, they would be great to bring to the CATCO briefing, which we expect to have, as we mentioned, later this week. We're looking right now at Friday. We'll get the dates out to you. Let me also say to you, please check our website as well as the emails we send out. MACNY is converting all of its offerings to digital offerings. So even the things that we originally considered canceling or postponing are going to be held in a digital format, and we're postponing every event that we planned on having to a further date to make sure you'll get the value out of your MACNY membership and that you'll be able to take advantage of them. You should know there are a whole series of new offerings that were not before offered, and you should be looking at those during your opportunities to learn and to grow and participate now that we're in this new normal, I'd like to call it. Let me also answer a question or two related that we've gotten. First of all, thanks for all your questions that we're getting either during my briefings, my live briefings, or throughout the day. There are a series of questions related to the CARES Act, and I've addressed a few of them in what I've just talked about. Keep sending your questions. We'll get them to those that we can provide them to try to get you answers. We've also had a whole series of HR questions related to everything that has to do with the New York State budget. For instance, there were lots of questions, and they're starting to get answered around the voting extensions and requirements that were part of last year's budget. I gave you some updates to those. And also keep asking questions related to essential businesses. I routinely ask and answer and get asked multiple questions throughout the day around that. We're a great source for that. We also have more specific guidance around how to deal with certain HR-related provisions around the way in which businesses are either an essential business or non-essential business. Let me also tell you that we'll continue to do updates on a daily basis. We'll take your questions and try to answer them during this session. And of course, we're available to you at any time you need us through email or phone calls. It is an absolute pleasure to serve you during this difficult time. I will tell you that it's been wonderful the way people have treated my team. They're working really hard from home, working many more hours than they would typically work, and I thank you for your kindness and your compassion with them, giving them the time to get back to you. The outpouring of support for the team and for manufacturing has been unprecedented in my 20 years of doing this work. And I would tell you, I've never been prouder to work with the manufacturing sector. A large percentage of our members are still working under these difficult conditions. I would say over 70% of our members have some part of their team working either in their facilities or from home. It's our intent to get all of you back open as soon as possible. At the regional level, we're working on a resiliency task force at both the Onondaga County, city, county level, and in the Central New York region. As a co-chair of the regional council, we'll be working with other regions as well as we find a way to transition both through this and to get our county back up and running again. We need you to be functioning and operating, and we want to help you do that. We will come through this time. Mike, the other times that MACNY has transitioned through this time, my predecessors and those companies have been doing this work for over 107 years. As we joke on our team, there'll be another 100 years for MACNY, and we look forward to helping you be successful in manufacturing and serving your customers into the long-term future. I'm going to sign off for today. I hope you got something meaningful out of this update. And as I say to my team, and I say to those that I send emails out to, be calm, stay safe, and carry on. Have a nice evening.